We're just gonna. Hey, everybody. Hey, Aaron Fisher here. Welcome to Afternoon Astonishment from Conjuror Community, the world's best magic club. I'm joined here today by Alexander Slemmer and Steve Barcelona. Adam Grace has the day off. He is on assignment. Today, we're going to be talking about the magic, the mental mind reading and magic of Bob Cassidy, kind of the Hell's Angel of mentalism. It's going to be very, very exciting. So do us a favor as we get started here. Take one moment and click that fantabulous follow button or the salacious subscribe button or both so you're notified every single time we bring forth this vintage jam for your pleasure. Alex, tell us a little bit about the awesome footage and the magic we're about to see.
We're going to get into Bob Cassidy today. And for me, Bob Cassidy was always like a secret weapon. You know, like I'm mostly a magician, but I like to do some mind reading and mental like things. And Bob Cassidy's stuff was so strong, such hard-hitting effects that there were ones that you could tuck in there and like just knock them dead in the middle of your show with something that was just totally unexpected. And I love it. I think he's a really creative guy. He's got very clever methods to get to basically looking like he was just reading minds, right? And he's definitely standing on the shoulders of giants. He just built construction based on old people's things and ironed out all the edges, so you get to a place where it just looks like it's real, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. I'm totally a super fan of Bob. I love watching his stuff.
I'll just say this one thing. You know, when we were kids, we were told to read Animan, we were told to read Corinda, and that was great advice. But you know, when you're 17 years old reading magic, it's kind of like when we tell kids today to read a book in the first place. They're like, ah. And so if you read those Animan, you're like, get yourself some Dow, but some zinc stearate, and you're like, I don't even get it. And then the Barry Richardson book and the Bob Cassidy books, sort of, in my mind, because like you say, they're standing on the shoulders of giants, they are really painted for guys when we were able to come up and read it. A picture of what it would really feel like. When you're reading about doing this in the 30s, you're kind of wondering how much of this is really, what it is. And that stuff read so good. And the fact that you have this vintage tape, what's the first thing we're going to watch?
We're going to get into a thing that has to do with the date, right? It has to do with basically a deck of cards being like a calendar and finding an interesting coincidence in someone having a special date. This is one of the first things that I adopted from Bob Cassidy when I started adding things into my act. This was one of the first things I took on because it's just wonderful.
Let's hope it's so coincidental that it's almost synchronistic.
There you go.
How many of you have ever had a psychic experience before? Whoa, a lot of people, but for some of you who don't know what I mean, the telephone rings. You know who it is before you pick it up? That's caller ID. That's not psychic, all right? But you know what I mean. You think of a song, it comes on the radio. You take a bath, your husband gets clean. Weird things like this. Let's see. I haven't prepared anything with anyone here this evening. What's your name, please?
Richard.
Richard.
Yep.
I was pointing at her, Richard.
Oh.
Her name is not Richard. What's your name, please? Yvonne. Have you ever gone to a fortune teller, Yvonne? Yes. You've had your tarot cards read before? Do you know that our modern day playing cards actually come from tarot cards? Think about it. A deck of cards is really a calendar. There are 52 cards in a deck of cards. There are 52 weeks in a year. There are 12 picture cards in a deck, 12 months to a year. There are 13 cards to each suit, 13 lunar cycles in a year, 4 suits, 4 seasons. The interesting thing, though, is if you add up the values in a deck of cards, counting a jack, 11, queen, 12, king, 13, ace is 1, they total 364, or the number of days in a year. Add the joker, and you have that. Isn't that strange? Do you think that's just a coincidence? I wondered about that, so I tried a test. I bought 7 decks of playing cards, shuffled them all together into one giant deck, and I bought a pocket diary. And on the first day in that diary, I wrote the first card in that deck. On the second day, the second card, until the whole diary was full. Now, Yvonne, you have no way of knowing, do you, what card fell on what date, correct? Now, I'd like you to stand up so everyone can see you, so they don't think I'm talking to an empty chair over here. Yvonne, nice and loud so everyone can hear. I want you to call out a month and a date that is important to you. Don't worry about the year, just a month and a day.
April 20th.
April 20, and that is a significant date to you. Now, you have no idea. Pardon?
My birthday.
It's your birthday. What a marvelous coincidence. Isn't that amazing? Now, shut up.
Whoa.
Yvonne, you have
That
no
works for the
idea
IRS.
what card fell on April 20th in my diary, but I brought my diary with me so you can see. Put this down for just a moment. We'll let the people on the front see. On every day in the diary, you can see I've written the name of a different playing card. I'm showing you December here, but they're all here. Each one's repeated 7 times throughout the year. Now, Yvonne, I want you to look in the beginning of the book to April. Look up your date, April 20th, I believe you said. And while she's doing that, I'd like to point out to the rest of you that before I came tonight, I put one card in my wallet. Wouldn't it be interesting? Wouldn't that be something? If it was the same card on the date, this would be really cool, wouldn't it? Nice and loud. What card appears on April 20th?
3 of spades.
If you'd have called out the 19th, what card would you have had?
The King of Hearts.
If you'd have called out the day after, what card would you have had?
10 of Hearts.
But on your day, April 20th was
3 of spades.
the 3 of spades. Wouldn't this be strange? 3 of spades. Do you think that's a coincidence? Right.
I know.
That's called mojo, Yvonne.
Look at this guy with the ladies.
I like the way he's working the crowd right there.
Wow. Would you say, Alex, that this is like the most vintage kind of top drawer Springsteen at TAMI type of Bob Cassidy tape you've got is the stuff we're watching today?
Yeah, I think
Like
this
stuff, you know?
Yeah. This is like the real workhorse show pieces that Bob came up with are
At
in
the
this
period, during the period when he was at his dankest.
Yeah. It's probably like late 80s, early 90s when all of this is shot. So he's definitely in a prime point. He's killing it.
One of the things I loved about that trick, which I've really never loved as much as I did till just now. I just felt like he had 7 decks of cards. I felt a lot of production value that was not there. Mm-hmm. Like just watching it as a disinterested layman, and I just he's talking about the 7 decks, and I'm sort of picturing this whole giant box from The Price is Right or something. Mm-hmm. For my imagination, I sort of felt like I got all that.
And I think that setup he does with the calendar and the relation to the deck of cards, to us, it's old hat. We're magicians. We've heard that whole spiel before. But I think the first time I heard it, even just as a magician, it stopped me in my tracks. And I think for laymen, when you find out that correlation between a deck of cards and the calendar, you go, whoa, really? I had no idea. And then I think that you're set up to go into that place where, okay, this guy's all right.
Because he's explained to you this technology, which seems to have come down out of the sky, these playing cards. And of course, the first time I heard about that was in Sunday school, right? Because this is like I say, they had this Kabbalah thing, and it's there's a lot of weird numerology in it. And so they break that down on the little kids, and they're like, well, it's the same effect. You know what I mean? It works on you the same way, because it's just, let's face it, it's cool. It makes a lot of sense. And it's like, it gets back to that question we all have. Whatever happened to the Major Arcana? I almost feel like the deck of cards, right, that we're dealing with is all that minor arcana, right? The cups and the wands and the swords and the suits. But the Major Arcana is those exciting cards, like Death and the Wheel of Fortune and the Lover. I sort of think they took a season off and have reappeared in the role-playing games. They're like, those are those decks. So that's an incredible trick. That's Chronologue, the OG.
That's Chronologue. And there was a marketed version of this that was out there. But it was a printed book, and it looks like a printed book, and it looks like a thing you bought at the store. And I think that one of the things that Chronologue has going for it is that it looks like nothing happened. You have a notebook, you have some cards written in there that you wrote in there, And again, to your point, I shuffled up 7 decks of cards and I mixed them up and I laid them all out and I went day by day and wrote it in my calendar. Like what an image, you know?
Do you know what?
And that's the
And
art with that date book, and it works.
And you're saying, because I remember buying it once, it definitely looked like photocopied pages. And you're saying that when you've done it, and the secret, no secrets, is don't do something like that. You have to actually use your pen and fill out your date book correctly.
Go buy a date book and fill in your date book for the thing so that it looks like it's an authentic date book, right? Otherwise, it looks like it's a magic prop.
And just so y'all know, it's an easy trick to do.
You know what I liked about the way he presented it is that the story is very direct. It's a very straight line. It's just what you need to know to form that thought in your mind that we're all talking about here, right? No extra stuff. No extra stuff. And as a result, when you get to the payoff, it's that much stronger because it's just a straight line with the story. There's no flowery language or anything like that. It's very direct.
Point is well taken, right? Because there's one man. She says April 20th. He doesn't do a joke about tax day.
Yeah.
Some guy
April 15th
tries to get whatever. Wow, you pay your taxes? That's totally cool.
I haven't paid him. No.
Yeah, I just think it's great that you know the date. So this guy says, it's my birthday. And we all had this reaction because Cassidy wasn't having it. And it's in the name of what Steve is saying at that moment, right? Because we might all think, wow, that was an intense choice. Is he always that snappish with people? And I think maybe we'll find out. And I'm sure his character is natural through all his work. But in that moment, he wanted to keep it just exactly how Steve said, right? He didn't, if he's like, oh, that's fascinating. It's not really, there was no time to let go. That string at that point, it was taut, just like Steve said.
That's right. Otherwise you have smoke and now all of a sudden your reaction starts to diminish because there's all this other information there. Totally. Kept it right on track, right on target. Beautiful.
Yeah. Because the whole
sound effect.
I mean, we were joking beforehand. Coincidence is kind of a trade term. You go through the old mental books and they'll say coincidences. But really, that word synchronicity has a lot more meaning to it because the whole point of a coincidence is it is random. The whole point of a synchronicity, and this is a tough one for audiences, this is why whether it's useful to your crowd may vary. But synchronicity is when it feels like it's so impossible. It would have to be a 1 in a million coincidence, but it's not a coincidence. It's something else, right? And so he's really making sure that no mere coincidences take the audience's attention, right? Because
that was just a mere coincidence, and you put that out with a fire extinguisher.
That's really great. I liked it.
And to what Steve's point as well, I think the reason he used the word coincidence is because it's a simple word. You could spend your whole life getting into a word debate with an audience, but the point is, they know it doesn't feel like a coincidence. They know it's an understated term, and then what it feels like is not a coincidence at all.
And also look at what he did at the beginning, right? He equated the deck of cards to a calendar and said, isn't that a coincidence? Isn't that weird? Right? Even though it's not, it's profound. And I think it's like foreshadowing how profound the effect is that's about to come, right?
Yep.
Pretty great.
So exciting. What's the next one?
All right. So this next one, he's going to dig deeper into people's minds looking for personal information. And I don't want to say anything because it looks so good. It just looks so good.
Need two people who have known each other for a long time. Not Pascal. He's known everyone for about 5 minutes, I know. Let us see. A couple, preferably. Your names, please.
Sandy and Goldie.
Sandy and Goldie, would you mind standing? Sandy, how long have you and Goldie been together?
38 years on our next anniversary.
A long time.
A long time.
The longer people live together, the more they begin to think alike. Now, we've just done an experiment in coincidence. We'll take it a step further at this point. Sandy, I want you to imagine a movie screen in your mind. You're in a theater. The screen in front of you is blank. On that screen, you are about to visualize something. You are going to visualize the name and face of a famous person in history. From the beginning of recorded history till now. You'll see a face on that screen. You'll see the name printed under the face. Can you do that? Goldie, focus on a screen in your mind. I would like you to concentrate on a famous place in history. Again, from the beginnings of history until now. See that place in your mind's eye. What's interesting, very often a couple that have known each other for a long time will think of related places. I've had the man think of Davy Crockett and the woman think of the Alamo. I've had the Eiffel Tower, and Napoleon. It's fascinating sometimes how these places will relate. Not always, but sometimes. Now, I have some pieces of paper here. I'm going to give you each one of them.
That was very important.
Would you come forward to the front so we can stay on the stage here? Here's one for you. I'll give you one for Goldie. And here's a pen for you. A pen for Goldie. If you'll just go back to her over there. On your cards, I want you to print, in your case, Sandy, the name of the person you're thinking of, and on yours, Goldie, the name of the place. When you're done, fold the card into quarters. I want both cards to look exactly the same. That's very important. Print them on the cards. Now, in a moment, one of these cards will be eliminated. No one here will know what our target is going to be, the name or the place. Are we done? Yes. Good. Fold the cards. Hold on to the pens for now. Just set them on the chair. Goldie, I would like you to take both cards. Both of the cards, and if you would, step forward. That's good. Goldie, what I want you to do is put the cards behind your back. Mix them up so you don't know which is which. So you have no idea, do you? If you have an idea, keep mixing them. Good. In a moment, you'll hand me one of those. Whichever one you hand me is going to be disqualified. If you would, sir, would you hold the ashtray, please? Hand me one, the one you don't want. You're sure? You can change your mind if you like. This could be the name, it could be the place. We're going to burn it. A child-proof letter, I love it. We could be burning the name, we could be burning the place. In fact, we are burning my fingers. Sir, I want you to make certain it burns completely. Make sure it doesn't open up while it's burning. I want you to hold the other card in your fist, just like this. Hold it up over your head. Good. Come forward. The name of the place. Okay, I get a very strong sense of the color white. You're thinking of a white guy, is that right? No, I'm kidding. I get a strong sense of white. And just write down what I'm getting. Did you change your mind when you were writing down places?
Yeah.
This was the first place that came into your mind?
Yes.
Let me write down what I'm getting. The white was a sense of it was like a cloth of some kind. Oh, that's not it. This could be. Sir, will you hold this face down?
Yes, sir.
Don't look at what I've written. No. For the first time, hand me the card. I got a strong sense of a person. I said a white guy, I was sort of kidding. The first thing, though, was that white. I get a sense of a robe. I get a sense of a cloth. Does that make some sense to you? An article of clothing of some kind. I believe we have the person here. Makes sense to me. Moses. Fascinating. Nice and loud, sir. What did I write?
Moses.
Whoa. Holy Moses! We have it, Moses. Obviously, we must have burned the place. Remain standing, Goldie, right there. We burned the place, obviously. No one could know what that is because it only exists in your mind. See the movie screen in your mind. And again, this color white keeps coming through to me. That makes sense to you, doesn't it? It's a place. It's a building in this place. I'll write down what I'm getting. Nice and loud so everyone can hear Goldie. What is the place in the world you're thinking of?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. I get a very strong impression of the White House, actually. Did you know Moses used to live in Washington, D.C.? Nice round of applause for Goldie. Marvelous. She's very good at that, isn't she?
It's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This is so interesting. We don't talk about secrets much here in this particular moment, but we talk about the effect and the showmanship and the structure of things and how magicians make things happen. And most of the important secrets of why anyone would feel like magic was happening aren't in the secrets of the trick. They're in the secrets of how it comes together, right? So it would help me, just as a non-mentalist, Alex, if we were to just sort of, in terms of the effect, clearly say what the effect was. Because what's beautiful in magic is you're left with this, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Well, what happened exactly? Well, he read my mind. And that's kind of ideally where you want to all these come down to.
That's right.
But it's hard to backtrack what was effect one, what was effect two, why did it get stronger, and how.
Right.
Can you tell us how that played out a little bit, Alex?
Absolutely. So it was a husband and wife. They were each given a card, and one was asked to write down a person's name. One was asked to write down the name of a place, right? Those cards were folded up, and the wife brought those two cards to the front of the stage, put them behind her back, shuffled them up, and she gave one to Bob to get rid of. Basically, Bob took one of those. He didn't know which one it was going to be. She didn't know which one it was going to be. And it got burned in the ashtray, up in flames. It's gone. So now there's only one piece of paper in play. And he asked for, or he basically divined that it was the name. He wrote down on a piece of paper the same name that was on that other piece of paper. And the person in the audience verified it. The burned piece of paper obviously was what was left, which was the place. That's gone. It's up in flames. Now it's just a thought, right? So now he has to genuinely get that thought from the mind of the spectator, write it down, and show per revelation that he basically was able to get both those pieces of information. It's remind reading.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry. You had a thought you were going someplace?
Well, my question was, at first, he defined them in two different ways, right? The second one, he wrote down on a piece of paper and showed everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because he couldn't verify it, because the first one, it was the slip of paper and the two slips could be compared, right?
Okay, so for the first one, he wrote down on a little thing and they verified this way.
Right, because the other one was gone, right? He couldn't verify it with the other one because it was burned. So that one just had to be a thought, and that person couldn't lie. I'm going to write it down here. Did I get it? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say the two things I think are really interesting is, first of all, it's his tone. He has a really authoritative tone, not to be questioned or messed with in any way. It's very direct and authoritative, almost like a college professor who's given this lesson 1,000 times, and I know what you need to know, and that's all you need to know.
I have a feeling watching it, Steve, that maybe this didn't play as well when he was a younger guy.
I don't know. I've seen that.
I felt like it worked for his age a little bit.
I don't know.
I think he grew into that because when he speaks about methods, he talks about doing these things forever and variations on how he would get to the place of the effect. Because sometimes things don't always go as planned, and sometimes you have unruly spectators and on and on. And it's clearly he has experience with all of that, and he can handle whatever's coming his way. He'll have the outcome.
The other thing I was going to say is like, it's just so nice, right? When you're a mentalist and not a magician, right? That when those slip comes to you, there's not a lot of heat on what you're doing. There's not a lot of heat. He had plenty of time to do everything he needs to do right there.
You have such gorgeous.
And no one's even looking. What?
You have such gorgeous legs. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I did not. I have not shaved them ever in my life.
It's interesting what you're saying because there's a trade term for these pieces of paper that often appear in mentalism, in mind reading, and it's important because when people have thoughts, no one knows what it is. You can't verify. You say, I'm thinking of something, and you say 4 hearts, and they go wrong, and but how does everyone know? So it's important that people can commit themselves, right? And so often mind readers carry these pieces of paper which are just like you saw, which are called billets here in the United States. But that's the term you find for them. But it's really interesting that nothing about what Bob Cassidy did feels anything like close-up magic. Even though there were cards, you may have noticed the first trick had a card in it. The second trick had card-sized pieces of paper in it. You wouldn't be crazy for noticing that there's a similarity there a little bit, and that it might be come up in some part of what he's doing. But there's never any sense that you are watching a person manipulating or doing anything like what you see when you watch a close-up magic performance on some of these vintage tapes that we watch. It feels different. And I think that's what Steve was just getting at a little bit, which is that Bob Cassidy is such a great example of how a mind reader can use similar principles to some of the principles that a sleight of hand artist uses, but the feeling is so different that you would never in a million years suspect that you're looking at guys who are in the same field. You know? It's an interesting thing because those billets, you don't think about them. They're not important. You know what I mean? You could think about how he's reading your mind all night long for years. And if you didn't really already know, or you hadn't read his book or something, you'd have absolutely no sense that any of that has anything to do with how he actually reads your mind.
It's funny that you mentioned that because there probably is another clip that I probably should have played before that one where he does do a sort of a little disclaimer on all of that, that the piece of paper is basically so that you commit and you can't mess with me. You can't change your mind in the middle of it. And so you don't forget what you wrote down, right? So it's, you know, he sort of takes the sting out of that piece of paper even being in existence with just a few sentences. You know, it's yeah, you don't notice that it's there, I think. It just goes totally right by, like, oh, he's wearing a jacket with his suit. You know, you just don't care.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So are we going to have after today, are we going to have more Bob Cassidy?
Yeah, we could probably watch a little bit more Bob Cassidy after this. It's, you know, there's more to see, and it's definitely lovely, inspirational stuff. Like I said, it's like one of the secret weapons, you know, because it's all worked out, you know, mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Yeah, I could watch this stuff all day long, and we can really, it's fun when we get to talk about magic. You know, it's almost like the fact that we're not sort of spilling secrets, magic secrets here, sort of gives us this wonderful chance to talk about all these other secrets to magic, which are not technically against the magician's code because they're really just about communication in the magical art form. So if you're if you're a member of CC Club, the best magic club in the universe, stick around. We're going to do a little after show where we talk a little bit more about that kind of stuff, the secret stuff. And if you are watching us on some other streaming opportunity, thank you for joining us. Do us a quick favor, hit that fantabulous follow button, that salacious subscribe button, and you'll be notified the next time we go live, which is often every couple days here at Conjuror Community, the world's best magic club. And if you haven't ever been a part of a real magic club, we're happy to say that Conjuror Community Club is the world's best, fastest growing magic club anywhere in the world, online or off. Thanks so much for watching.